for joining me today. Welcome to Whispered Review. I'm Matt, and I hope you're doing well. So, obviously I want to say up front that there are going to be spoilers in this video. So, if you have not seen the movie and you would not like it ruined, please go ahead and push pause, go watch the movie, and then come back. So, with that out of the way, today we're going to go ahead and take a look at Ant-Man, the motion picture that came out earlier this year in 2015, featuring Paul Rudd and was directed by Peyton Reed. Now, I'm sure most of you know that this movie was originally created by Marvel Studios, so it's got a rich history to pull from in terms of the character and in terms of the plot. So they had their hands full, but they had a real challenge in front of them because Marvel Studios has been doing so well for so long that there was a risk that by taking on one of these minor characters, they might lose some fans, but they felt it was really necessary because they needed to grow their quote-unquote universe in order to have a large cast to pull from as the current Avengers or stars of the Marvel movies begin to end their contracts and move on to other projects. So Paul Rudd sort of picks up the helm here in this movie, and in all, it's a really solid movie, a very enjoyable watch. It's 2 hours and 12 minutes, so you certainly have a lot to pay attention to, but you really don't notice the time going by. It's paced very well. The acting is solid. The plot makes sense, and it's a lot of fun. It's not the best movie Marvel's made. It's not the best movie of the year. But when I think about what I'd like to sit down on a Saturday afternoon, or in this case, a Thursday afternoon, and watch for fun, this is on the list. So let me go ahead and give credit where credit is due, and let you know that Edgar Wright, Joe Cornish, Adam McKay, Paul Rudd were part of the screenplay process. Edgar Wright and Joe Cornish also developed the story, and then going back to the comic book years, Stan Lee, Larry Lieber, and Jack Kirby were all responsible for its presence in the Marvel comic book universe. Okay, so now that we have all that out of the way, before I get to the main characters, I thought I'd go ahead and talk to you a little bit about the plot of the movie. I thought that the plot was really solid. It's this idea that Michael Douglas's character, Dr. Hank Pym, who the original Ant-Man is based off of, has reached an age where he can no longer take up the mantle of Ant-Man, but realizes that there's a serious threat that his mentee, Corey Stoll, who plays Darren Cross, is developing his own serum of sorts to shrink the space between atoms, which is what gives Ant-Man his powers. And so, with this fear in mind, he realizes that he needs to go ahead and find somebody who can pick up the mantle. And so he starts to follow and track Paul Rudd's character, Scott Lang. And as we find out later, he's been watching him ever since his character pulled off a substantial burglary earlier in his career, and has kind of been eyeing him for a while. And when he sees an opportunity, both in Scott Lang's life and in his, and when obviously the perfect circumstances are created, he decides to go ahead and create a situation where Scott Lang needs to rob Hank Pym's, Dr. Pym's house. And by doing this, it's a way of proving the skills of Scott Lang to make sure that he's the right fit. Once all this early plot kind of gets underway and we really start moving in the story, you discover that there's conflict between Hope Van Dyne, who is Dr. Hank Pym's daughter, about whether or not she should be the boss, which is a character that existed originally with Dr. Hank Pym when he was Ant-Man, and was portrayed by his wife, at least according to the way the movie portrays it. And so eventually Lily, the daughter who plays the daughter, is frustrated because she feels that she is the rightful heir to the serum and the technology. But Michael Douglas's character just won't let her have that. And so there's a lot of conflicts surrounding that throughout the movie. So I won't really go into a ton of detail about how that develops. But I do think they handle it well. At times I felt it was a little bit overplayed. And I felt like they could have addressed it and moved on without having to tap into the same well over and over and over again. Not that the well was dry, not that it wasn't valid, but it just, I felt like there were other things that they could have been addressing. But that said, it worked, it functioned, and it wasn't that big of a deal. So, that aside, we moved to the point where everybody's kind of taken their way, right? So Paul Rudd, Scott Lang, has decided he's going to pick up being the Ant-Man. Dr. Abraham is going to train him along with his daughter, Van Dyne. And these three characters are working together to steal the serum and destroy the data, backup data from Darren Cross, who, when he does take on this bad guy character, which of course obviously the ultimate conflict is that he is able to perfect his technology and become the Yellow Jacket. So that's primarily where we're headed, is that they're trying to stop this guy from copying the technology. Overall, I thought the plot moved well. I thought it was successful in drawing people into the mythology and giving them a strong platform with which to grow and sort of become a part of what's going to become, I'm guessing, a series of movies. So it's a solid plot for where they want to go, where they're starting out. You have to take into consideration that they're laying the groundwork for a lot of stuff that's going to come in the future. And so if this were a one-off movie, I probably wouldn't be thrilled with where it ended. But obviously that's not the case here. So hopefully in the future, we'll get a chance to see Dr. Pym's wife, the original Wasp. There's been conversation online about, will the next movie be sort of a 50-50 where half of it will be about the original Ant-Man and the original Wasp, and then the new Ant-Man and the new Wasp, who also just happen to have a love interest, as we discover at the end of the movie. So there's certainly things to look forward to. It's very common for Marvel bad guys, antagonists, to not be very strong. I think this is the case here as well. I don't think the Yellow Jacket was particularly memorable. He really isn't in it for very long, let alone in his bad guy suit doing his bad guy thing. He's a character. But really the movie's about Ant-Man, and it's about how he gets his, powers of sorts, or technology really, in the sort of the way Marvel is portraying the cinematic universe, is that it's less about powers and more about technology that's created him. So in this case, his technology and how he gets set up in this larger arc of a story that's going to take place over, I'm sure, 3, 4, 5 movies. So I thought in the plot as well, they had some interesting Easter eggs, or at least some interesting tipping of the hat to the Avengers when he goes to the Avengers, one of their sites, and has an interaction with Anthony Mackie, who plays the Falcon. So they did, and also actually on top of that, I thought they really did actually a solid job of addressing why they didn't just call the Avengers if there's some big horrible threat, and even to prove how serious the threat was. Come to find out at the end, right, that one of the buyers of this technology, who's infiltrated the Avengers, or Shield, I should say, is in fact Hydra, and so they do have some very serious concerns. And you know, Michael Douglas's character, Dr. Pym, makes a point of saying how he worked really hard to keep it out of the original Stark. Howard Stark was played by John Slattery. His hands, because of the concern of what would happen with it, and made a point of saying, I'm not going to let them have a chance of taking it back. I'm not going to let them have the opportunity to use it for something else. I am the one who created this, and I need to be the one who squashes it. So I thought that was well addressed. I'm glad they addressed it, because clearly otherwise we just come up with some other movies. People are starting to say, like, you've got this group, you've got the Avengers, why aren't you just using them for everything? And I like that in this movie they earned the audience, and they understood that, we needed some reasoning, some justification for why in fact they're not being used, particularly when we're talking about something that is threatening to the world. So, well done there. So, at this point, I am going to roll through the characters and tell you, who I thought did a solid job, and point out some of the things I thought were pretty interesting about the cast they chose to use. So to start us off, I'm going to go ahead and go with Paul Rudd, who plays Scott Lang, and the Ant-Man. Like I said before, he does a great job. He is comedic. His comedic timing is strong. He gives you a strong sense of who the character is, gets you bought into his story and his struggles, and is a very sympathetic character. I found that when it came to making you believe that he was a hero or could be a hero, the development was really interesting, because when it starts off, you don't see it necessarily as somebody who has the physical prowess to be a Marvel hero, but by the end, you're kind of bought into this idea that he has some acrobatic skill, which is kind of funny at times, but that, he can handle the job, and the way he, whether it's a stunt double or him, the way that they handled the physical motion of it was well played and well done. So, yeah, I was actually really pleased with his performance, and look forward to seeing him take on this character and grow as a character. Michael Douglas did a really great job as Dr. Hank Pym. You can tell that he's emotionally tied and bought into the fact that, he was this guy for years and years and years, and really cares about the technology he created, and really just misses being Ant-Man, but understands that he can't play that part anymore, but that he's going to be a good steward. And this is really one of those first times that we see in the Marvel Cinematic Universe when someone's technology or powers get passed from one generation to the next. Yes, we do kind of see this a bit with Tony Stark from his father, but really Tony Stark created Iron Man on his own, so it's not quite the same. This is the first time where we really see that there was a hero who couldn't fulfill the role anymore and needed to pass it on. I think this might be an interesting moment for Marvel Studios, because it kind of let them test the groundwork for how they're going to handle this in a few years, when some of their main characters start to pass on the torch to other versions of themselves, which is just bound to happen because these characters can't play the same part for the next 15, 20 years. It's just not realistic. So I thought this was a good time for them to test out the waters and see how they do with it, and I thought they did a nice job. Evangeline Lilly as Oak Van Dyne as the Wasp, or who will become the new Wasp, did a good job. I thought every once in a while it might have been a little bit overacted. I know this is gonna sound silly, but I really hated her hair. The bangs, just, I get it. You know, it's marketing back to original source content, but I really didn't like it. I didn't think it was a good look. I thought it was outdated. And I think it kind of hit how beautiful she really is. But that said, and it's, it's superficial, but she really was doing a good job buying you into the fact that she wanted to be this person. She wanted to play this part, and felt that she had the chutzpah to do it, and was really pissed that she couldn't. So, and was kind of being overlooked for Paul Rudd. And of course, obviously, as the movie goes on, we find out why. But, she did a solid job. She did a good job, and I look forward to seeing her again. Corey Stoll, who played Darren Cross in the Yellow Jacket, he did a good job. I didn't really care for it too much. It wasn't the worst Marvel bad guy. It certainly wasn't the best. And I certainly didn't care what happened to him. I thought he overacted the role a lot. I thought there were some scenes where it just was, it took you out of the movie because he was acting so hard and trying to be this big bad guy and playing this gotcha game. It didn't play well for me. I liked the technology. I thought they could have done so much more with his character and with the technology that he had developed. In Marvel, again, we talk about this yin and yang, that for every bad guy, they have to encounter their counterpart, their doppelganger. And this obviously is Ant-Man's doppelganger. But I just didn't really care much for him. I thought the character was cool. I thought the technology was cool. I just didn't care for Gary Stoll's portrayal. As far as the rest of the characters, they were okay. Michael Pena, T.I., and I believe it's Wood Harris do a good job of playing support characters. Or I'm sorry, it's not Wood Harris, I apologize. The other sort of third musketeer in the group of people helping out was David Dastmalchian. I'm sure I mispronounced that. But they did a good job. They were comic relief. They were characters that were interesting. They didn't really go into their background much, but they portrayed them well, and I'm happy and fine with them being in future movies. I think one of the standout characters and performances was actually done by Darcy Cottrell, who plays the daughter of Paul Rudd's character. I thought she was a cutie pie. I think she did a tremendous job. She was funny at times. Her facial expressions were so on point and well delivered. Her timing was great, and was just a joy to see on screen every time she was on screen. I don't know a lot about her background, but I'm sure she has a very, very strong career ahead of her if she so chooses. Judy Greer, who plays Scott Lang's ex-wife, she's okay. She has been in a lot of movies, has been a supporting actress. She usually plays somebody who's kind of annoying, but I thought in this one she did a solid job. Not a standout performance, not anything that I think she needs to be overly recognized for, but she didn't take me out of the movie, and I feel like a lot of times she plays characters who are a bit over the top, and it just kind of, I don't know, for me it pulls me out of the movie. So in this case, I think she did a nice job of sort of just blending into the background and being a supporting character. Everybody else did a good job, and was pleased with the movie. Like I have hinted at earlier and sort of said, I do look forward to the sequel. Anytime you have one of these origin stories, you have to just accept that they're going to spend a lot of time going over the origin aspect, and so you're not going to necessarily get the biggest, baddest enemy that they faced. You're not going to see them spend a lot of time on anything else other than their origin and getting you comfortable with the main character. And I get that, and I respect that, especially for this movie, which is sort of it's one of those minor characters in the Marvel universe, and they're trying to bring Ant-Man into sort of the mainstream. So even more so, why they needed to really get people comfortable with this character and their background. So I get it. That said, I really am looking forward to the sequel. I want to see where they go with this now that the characters have been established. The Wasp character is clearly going to play a role, and you are kind of bought into the mythos of the story. I don't really have a lot more to offer in terms of general comments, other than it's a solid movie, and I think it's a good movie for kids and adults to enjoy. There's a solid amount in this that, as an adult, you can look back on and find funny. The Baskin Robbins commentary is really funny. That a younger kid might just overlook, but it's also cool for a little kid because they are getting introduced to a character who they may have never ever heard of before, because they're just not as familiar with Marvel. So I thought it was really neat. I am really excited, going back to the sequel piece for a minute. They did a really interesting job looking at what happens when they enter into this other dimension, when he toys with his technology, when he's told not to, because of the danger that exists. So I am actually really excited to see what they do with that. There's been some commentary about, is this connected to Doctor Strange? Was Doctor Strange in there? Was the Wasp in there? I'm not totally sure about that, but they've done a nice job laying a good, strong groundwork. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and stop this review here. This is my first review, so I'm sure that in time these will get better. I appreciate you staying with me through this. Please leave your comments and feedback below. And if you have any suggestions about movies that you would like to see me review, please leave that suggestion